TV junkie quite rightly said neither of us know what is what in this case with Raab. The facts of the matter is that Raab has been accused of 18 different incidents, denied all of them, but in a report by one person, a KC, one person, two claims have been found credible enough to conclude Rishi Sunak had the legal foundation to sack Dominic Raab. Those are the facts of the case. Afghanistan is a separate matter, not linked to the allegations of bullying, and therefore irrelevant to that investigation and that report. I agree, legally that's the case, but morally I think it's entirely in order. The question that remains is whether or not Raab's conduct was bullying intentionally, unintentionally, or whether his claims of the civil servants ganging up on him because they disagreed about his policies is the truth. The findings of the report leaves that question wide open because there's so few of the claims that have been, actually, I've run out of space. But anyway, TV Junkie, yeah, I agree entirely. The report itself, we haven't seen the report yet, so the report will be very interesting to read when it's finally published. But when the whole report is published, we've seen bits of it. But I point out that there are things we already know. We know that civil servants were given the opportunity to move to different jobs instead of working again with Mr. Raab. That tells us something to start with. We also know the story that Gina Miller told about how she appeared on a TV show with him. And after the show, he was extraordinarily abusive, and then abusive to a fellow in the car park. In fact, I can read you what she said. She said, as we made our way out of the studio, the young runner showed us to the lift and said he would meet us downstairs. As the lift door closed, Raab stared at me and said, I can't make up my mind if you're naive, got too much money, or just stupid. Just because you have deep pockets and friends in high places, you think you can go to the court to stop the will of the people. Miss Miller said that she was stunned by the comments and didn't respond. She added, the doors opened, and the young man told me that my car was just outside. Raab barked at the young man. Where's my car? The young man replied that they hadn't been asked to arrange a car, and that maybe Raab's office had organised one instead. Raab was furious and shouted at the young man, get me an effing car. Now, of course, I don't suppose he was that discreet in his in his choice of expletive. She claimed that the young man was shaking after the encounter and described Mr. Raab as aggressive and intimidating. She then went on to say that this was an aggressive male expressing seemingly misogynistic behaviour. I would disagree at that point. I think this is an aggressive man simply being aggressive. I don't think he would have been any the less aggressive, Miss Miller, whether or not it was a woman or a man. I think the fact that he was in the lift with somebody who had challenged him on a TV programme and that he got you on your own was quite sufficient for Mr. Raab. But it is an interesting story, and of course it becomes significantly more credible now that two people have had their stories exonerated. At the time, when this story was printed in the Independent, I think in about 2016 or something extraordinary, it was, or it took place in 2016. I think the story was published more recently. The story was published at the beginning of February this year, and but the event took place in 2016. And a source from close to Mr. Raab, maybe, said these are baseless and malicious claims timed to jump on a political bandwagon and give Gina Miller the publicity she credits. Don't you find Gina Miller always reminds you? Whenever I see the name Gina Miller, I'm always tempted to think that she had an extraordinary second career dancing with Gene Kelly, but I think I'm just getting her name confused. Anyway. I think that story sounds very credible now. I say it only took one person to be found to be credible. In fact, two people were found to be credible, and I have no doubt that more people will come forward with testimony now that their jobs will no longer be at risk. But there's a lot to be done to clear up the mess, and it's a great shame that Mr. Sunak has not drawn a line more firmly under this affair.